And South Korea's Trade Minister An Deok-keun is visiting the U.S. to push for tariff exemptions from the Trump administration.
On the European Union, do you want the truthful answer or should I give you a political answer? Absolutely. Absolutely. The European Union has treated us so terribly.
In an unexpected turn of events, South Korea, one of the United States' most reliable allies in Asia, has made a bold and surprising decision, replacing the United States with Canada for its natural gas imports. The move has stunned global energy markets, and many are left asking, how did this happen? And what does this mean for the future of energy diplomacy, especially for the United States under the leadership of former President Donald Trump? Trump's America First policies aimed at making the U.S. a global leader in energy production and exports. But in a surprising twist, this shift in South Korean energy procurement may indicate cracks in the strategies that Trump envisioned. So, what led to South Korea's decision to pivot from American natural gas to Canadian supplies? And what does it mean for global trade, energy security, and diplomacy? Before Donald Trump took office in 2017, the United States was already on track to become an energy giant, primarily due to the rise of fracking and the shale boom. By the time Trump became president, the U.S. was not just an energy producer, but had started exporting liquefied natural gas, LNG, to countries around the globe. Indeed, the America First agenda made energy exports a key component of his foreign policy. Under Trump, the United States made a push to not only become energy independent, but to reshape global markets by exporting U.S. LNG to nations like South Korea, Japan, and several European countries. But South Korea, an industrial powerhouse, has always been heavily dependent on energy imports. It's one of the world's largest consumers of LNG. For years, it relied on supplies from nations such as Qatar, Australia, and the United States. South Korea's energy needs are vast, with natural gas accounting for a significant portion of the country's energy consumption. As such, the relationship with the U.S. in terms of LNG was vital for both countries. But things began to change in the last few years. Meanwhile, across the Pacific and Canada, a different energy landscape was unfolding. Canada, traditionally known for its oil sands and natural gas resources, began making significant strides in expanding its LNG export capacity. The country has vast natural gas reserves, particularly in the western provinces of Alberta and British Columbia. Over the past decade, Canada started building the infrastructure necessary to export LNG to markets in Asia. With projects like the Coastal GasLink pipeline and LNG Canada's export terminal in British Columbia, Canada was preparing to take its place as a major LNG exporter. So, why is this shift so significant for South Korea? The primary factor was cost. U.S. LNG, despite its rapid growth in production, was becoming increasingly expensive due to transportation costs and geopolitical tariffs. The U.S. export model, with the added complexity of Donald Trump's trade wars, led to higher prices for international buyers like South Korea. On the other hand, Canadian LNG, with its proximity to the Pacific Ocean and a stable political environment, became an increasingly attractive option. Shipping costs from Canada to South Korea were significantly lower, and the political relationship between the two countries was both stable and productive. This gave South Korea the flexibility to diversify its energy sources while securing a more favorable deal. Another factor driving this shift was the increasing focus on climate change and the global push toward cleaner energy. While the Trump administration was often criticized for its stance on environmental policies, many other nations, including South Korea, were intensifying their efforts to reduce carbon emissions. Canada, which had stronger environmental regulations than the U.S., positioned itself as a cleaner alternative. South Korea, with its commitment to becoming carbon neutral by 2050, saw Canadian natural gas as a better fit for its long-term energy strategy. In fact, Canada's approach to energy production and its commitment to reducing methane emissions from its natural gas industry made it a more attractive partner for South Korea in terms of aligning energy procurement with environmental goals. The U.S., under Trump, had also initiated a series of tariffs and trade barriers that led to economic friction with South Korea and other allies. South Korea, while still a major partner of the United States, had to consider the rising unpredictability of the trade relationship. The tariffs imposed by the U.S. on steel and aluminum in particular created a sour note in their trade dealings. As energy became a more politically charged issue, South Korea sought stability and predictability, two things that Canada could offer in abundance. The decision to replace U.S. LNG with Canadian natural gas isn't just an economic shift, it's also a geopolitical move. South Korea's relationship with the U.S. has been one of mutual defense and economic cooperation for decades. But the change in energy suppliers suggests that the U.S. may no longer have as much leverage over South Korea's energy decisions as it once did. Under Trump, the U.S. pushed for energy dominance and even considered using energy exports as a form of diplomacy. Yet, with Canada taking a more prominent role in South Korea's energy landscape, the dynamics of the U.S.-South Korea relationship could be on the brink of a major shift. South Korea may continue its military and strategic alliance with the U.S., but when it comes to energy, Canada now looks like the more reliable partner. The impact of this shift extends far beyond the U.S.-South Korea relationship. As South Korea embraces Canadian LNG, other countries may begin to follow suit, especially those in Asia that rely on imported energy. Canada's increasing role in global energy markets could reshape the dynamics of international energy trade, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. As the U.S. grapples with the ramifications of its America First energy policies, one thing is clear: the global energy market is changing. The push for energy dominance by the Trump administration may have made the U.S. a major energy exporter, but it also alienated some of its key allies, like South Korea. Now, with Canada stepping up as an energy provider, Trump's vision of the U.S. leading the world in energy trade is being challenged. Whether or not this shift has long-lasting impacts on U.S.-Canada relations or the future of global energy remains to be seen. The decision by South Korea to pivot to Canadian natural gas is more than just an energy decision. It's a reflection of how global power dynamics are shifting. As countries like South Korea prioritize stability, climate goals, and economic considerations, energy relationships are becoming more complex than ever for the U.S. This is a wake-up call. In the evolving world of energy diplomacy, it's not just about producing the most oil and gas. It's about building lasting, reliable partnerships. Whether Canada can maintain its newfound prominence in the global energy market, or whether the U.S. can reclaim its place as a dominant energy exporter, will be determined in the coming years.